Hello everyone, welcome to Talks to Google. I'm Kevin Vlk, and today I'm very excited to have JR here. So let's welcome him.
Thank you. Hey everybody.
So you have your directorial debut of your new film, short film, Ellis. Can you talk to us about what the film is about?
Yes, it's a short film about this quite amazing place on Ellis Island where 12 million immigrants came through to America on the East Coast. And half of the island have actually never been seen, and it's abandoned since more than 80 years now, since they closed out. And when I discovered that place, I just wanted to paste some image, which is most of what I do. I take photos that I repaste on walls, but in this case, it was photos from the time archive that I find of immigrants arriving there. And then I wanted to film this place because I knew that it would decay, and maybe one day no one would, ever see it again because it would disappear. And already since we filmed, and you can see the trailer online actually, a lot of those rooms have fell down, so are not visible anymore. So it's the story of an immigrant that got stuck there, like a lot of people at the time who would make it there but would never make it to the other side of the water, which is crazy. After like 2-3 months of travels, they would get to the island right in front of their goal, and yet they had to go back. And Eric Roth wrote it brilliantly, and we made a parallel with today's story. And when we started working on that a year and something ago, we didn't know that it would connect to the largest crisis right now since the Second World War. So it's a special time to release such a piece.
Yeah, and it stars Robert De Niro, and it was written by Eric Roth.
Yes.
And so how did you bring them, and why did you decide to bring them into the project?
That was the only actors I could find.
The only one.
They sent me their curriculum vitae, and I said, all right. Like Robert De Niro never done any movie, a short film before, which is true actually, never made any shorts. So I went, okay, I'm going to give you your first debut. Awesome. No, but to be serious, he was a great help in the project. And when I mentioned that I was working in Ellis Island, he said, oh, great. But then I was like, maybe I would love that somehow you jump in for a minute, and if by chance I have a camera filming, then you might star in my film. He laughed about it, and he said, look, if you write it properly and you get a writer for that. And that's how we got in touch with Eric Roth, whose family came to Ellis Island. So he right away jumped in the project and started writing. And then by the time we were ready, it was winter, and we were like, that's actually the perfect time to screen it. To film it, what we didn't know is that there would be a crazy storm, and that make it so much magical, because we couldn't bring any equipment there. We had no rights to change the light or whatsoever, and as much as it's decaying, it's also a protected monument, so they were really careful about any stuff bringing there. So we got lucky with the light also.
I gotcha. And when writing this with having Eric write this, and the story, was it based on any particular story, or was it just kind of done through all the research
So Eric Roth did an incredible job going through a lot of research, and we also went through contemporary research of people who just got here, and we've been emailing back and forth about stories that we hear in the media, or stories that we hear from people we knew, and I guess all of it made this film possible.
Gotcha. And this was commissioned by the Ellis Island Hospital, and so is it somewhat of a permanent exhibition?
The pasting, yes, they kind of commissioned it at some point, say, okay, we'll keep it there forever until the building fell. And people can actually go and visit. You have to log in for the hard hat tour, and you put a hard hat, and 2 guards go with you, and you can actually visit that space. But the film, we completely self-finance it and do it completely independently. But it was the first time they actually authorized anybody to film there. So, I hope this stays also as a documentation of how the space is and was for some of the places that are disappearing.
And this was your first time as a director. So what was that like going from, because you've written books and you've done films before, but you never directed one. So how was that going from behind a still camera into a live action camera?
I mean, I was not afraid of the camera, especially that there was no one in the building for most of the time. But directing my first actor was definitely a challenge, and when it's Robert De Niro, it's also make it a little bit more difficult. But he's been an incredible inspiration and help on this project, and guiding me also on how much we would need to put in the film, and he helped also on the script. So it was I was well guided, let's say, and but it was definitely a moment of learning, and it still is. That's why I love collaborating with artists and people that know much more in their field than I do, so that on the process I get to learn also about all these things, and this was definitely an incredible experience.
Yeah, and your career really, was started on the streets of Paris, and you kind of took this whole idea of taking almost the graffiti and street art into a whole different realm, a whole different world. So, what inspired you to do that, and what are some of the boundaries that you face in terms of, because a lot of it's illegal. So, did any of that really scare you, or was it just you felt like this message needed to be told?
Yeah, pasting photos in the street doesn't sound like a crime when you say it like that. In some countries it is, in some others now I'm welcome in the biggest museum, and at the same time in other places it's still a crime. But that's always been the case since I started when I was 17, 18. It's just that now you have this whole movement of street art, and it's a little bit less seen as vandalism than it used to be. For me, it's always been trying to enter in other worlds, and many words that I wouldn't know about. So I always wait for someone to tell me, no, that art doesn't belong here, we don't want that. And I've started traveling because of my art in tons of places, and I would go in places that I've heard only through the media, that I've never been to, like Liberia, Sierra Leone, or Kenya, or Brazil. And I would, of course, ask the community, because I didn't have any authorization, if I could walk there, expecting someone to tell me for a good reason or not that it was not possible. And I never encountered that. People were like, no, let us help you. Where do you want to place? How we should do it? Maybe we should do it this way because it makes more sense for us. And slowly I would see how the communities were actually engaged themselves in. And that was really the beginning of a change for me, of realizing how much the community was involved, and so how much more I could get them involved. So I started a project where I actually wouldn't travel there, but I would ask them to take the photo and I would send it to them. So suddenly, in a year, we would do thousands of cities, but not about what I believe should be right, but about what the people in their own community believe is important to them. And so while this project is running, I've started working on other projects. And in this case, it was, I knew that there was something that immigration always been a subject. It was 100 years ago, and it will be in 100 years. And we all come from somewhere. I just thought that trying to see and understand better our past were a better way to, a good way to understand what's going on right now and maybe face our future. And Ellis Island, for here in America, it rings a bell to how America got built. But in Europe, some people know about it, some doesn't. It's more this idea of a gate, and I went in Sicily, in Lampedusa, where a lot of migrants arriving, and you find a lot of similarities, except that this was a place that was not made to be a gate, but that became by itself. And so it's just interesting to put parallel, especially with what's going on right now.
Yeah, you said something that was really interesting. You said about, sending them the pictures and having them send it back and stuff. So since you started, kind of in the mid-2000s, and now we're 2015, where technology has completely evolved, how has that changed how you do stuff, or what kind of projects that you do?
I think I would not do any of what I do if low-cost flight would have come in, if digital camera had appeared. When I started, there was none of that, but my work evolved widely around the world because of that, because of technology, because of the easier way to exchange with everybody, the social media, all that stuff really is a big part of my work. It's not just a place where I just repost what I do in the street. It's really something that I gather people, I connect with people, that I find ways to shoot, to involve, or discover about communities. So it's really a big part of my process. And in this film, for example, it's not just a film I'm willing to just show here and there. It's a film that I want people to organize screenings. Instead of just putting it online and trying to get as much view as possible, I want actually people to get it to their community. And it means anybody, to their friends, their family. We're going to send the film for free to anybody who wants it. And then they can screen it. and make a little discussion after. You know, I think social medias and technology have connected us all, but at the same time disconnected us all from each other. All I'm trying to do is create, you know, use that technology to reconnect us in physical place. And for that, it means also disrupting a bit the way social media, like short films and artworks like that, are normally shown.
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems like you are embracing and engaging with people and stuff. Has it become more difficult to do some of these projects now, knowing that there is social media and everyone has a camera in their pocket, where someone could just be like, "Oh, taking a selfie with JR, you know, on site while you're trying to do this stuff overnight"?
You know, when we paste, it's fine. Actually, the funny thing is when we do big pasting, it's so big that people actually come and be like, "You guys need a hand?" That's more what happened. They're like, "You guys look like you're not organized at all." Like, and then people jump in and help. And we most of the time start our project where we get a place and then people start gathering. And then once they realize, we just did that this weekend. We were shooting a piece in New York, and people in line that waited for us are like, "Yo, instead of waiting, can I just help?" Like, because it looks like it's bit of a mess, the organization here or there, and we're like, sure. And then that's how we gather, you know, people, and people come with ideas. We love this, you know, making it in the way and involving people in the process.
You have a three-book series, which is 28 millimeter series, where women are heroes, face to face, and portrait of a generation. So, with the 2007 one, where you have huge portraits of Israelis and Palestinians, you went around to 8, you know, different cities and printed them up on the security fence and the walls and stuff. So, how did you get that done in that region?
Definitely illegally, but you know, same thing. I really thought it would not be. People remember the wall, but actually, what impressed me the most is that it was faces of Israeli and Palestinian doing the same job. So 2 taxi drivers, 1 Israeli, 1 Palestinian, and we actually pasted them in 4 Palestinian cities and 4 Israeli cities on people's houses. So it means that it's actually people who gave their wall to have two faces that, of course, when we paste them, created a lot of debate, and who is those people? And then when they realized there was one from each side, there was always a long silence because nobody could recognize who is who. But then after, what people don't understand is that those photos stayed. And until today, we're almost like 10 years later, they're still there for a lot of them. And those people had to explain that project every day. I was gone the next week, but people there had to explain why those photos were on their wall. That's what I found extraordinary. When from here, sometimes we feel that, you know, there is so much hate and between both sides, and that project was just a living proof that actually people first accepted on both sides to have the photo of the others on their walls, but also they actually carried it all those years. So, you know, it could have gone completely wrong, that project, and I was, you know, I was prepared for that too, but I'm actually amazed that it not only went really well when we were there, but also that it kept on going and created so much more impact after over the years because of those images that I would have never believed. There was even a guy that do a lot of tourism that organized the first Israel-Palestine tour so that people can go and see by themselves. They say, go and judge by yourself, go and meet both sides. Don't only go through the political tour that are organized, but go and, you know, and visit and make your own opinion. And they use my images for that, and I was fine with it because for me, that people go and see and judge by themselves is what we need, instead of just like taking the information we're grabbing from here and there. So that's the first reason why I went there the first time, because I just wanted to actually see by myself. And as a foreigner, we actually have the chance to be able to go on both sides, which they can't do.
And we'll be taking some audience questions here if you guys want to start lining up with the mic. So in 2008, you did this beautiful series, Women Are Heroes, which is part of the 28 millimeter series. And so what inspired you to create this theme that just celebrates women and just did a beautiful job with portraying them?
I guess, you know, when I just did the Middle East, I wanted to go in other places where there's no museum, where there's no street art or anything like that. And when I traveled to Africa the first time, I realized that men were really the one controlling the street. And because I work with no authorization, except the authorization from the people, I knew that those men in the street would be the ones that I'd have to negotiate with. And I would see that the women were the pillar of the community and the society. So I found a way by photographing women to then involve men to paste the photos, because there would be the gate to those worlds. And so that's how the project started. And slowly taking over different communities around the world and find the same process in all of those places.
Interesting. And is there a location or a country or a place where you have not gone to or you have not done a piece of work in? and is there a place that you want to go but you can't?
I mean, there's many places I haven't been, but my work have been through the inside out. It have been in more than, I don't know how many, 140 countries and tens of thousands of cities. But you know, I travel really, like if you see on my Instagram, it's kind of like on the daily base of where I am. And that's why I say, hey, we're doing a screening tonight, or a wall here. And I really, that's most of the time we say the morning for the night. And sometimes I travel to a place you know, next week I'm going to Japan, and I'm going to places I've never been to. And I'm always curious to visit new places. So, you know, I guess I have time for that.
And what was your favorite place to shoot so far?
That's a hard one, because you know, there's a lot of places I love. Working in Brazil was amazing, and that's why I'm in that favela. We're still working in that same community 7 years later. So in some places, I love actually the continuation of working in the same, like or in the projects of Paris, in the suburbs where I started. 10 years later, we're still doing, you know, projects there, and I love that because then you see the impact of the work and what it means. You see the same people growing. I mean, you know, that's what I love. Like, yeah, because the pastings are ephemeral, but we often underestimate the power of the image and how the image can become, you know, timeless.
Yeah, and you mentioned this. So in 2011, you won the TED Prize, and then with that money, you started the Inside Out project. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the TED speech was for me a hard exercise in a way that you have to combine all your ideas in 20 minutes. But it was an easy thing because I had only people in suits in front of me and shirts, where when I had to explain my work in Liberia, I had people with machete. So it was, you know, much easier to explain, you know, on the West Coast. But I was really impressed of how the speech then went and went viral, and then people got to understand the connection between one work to another. And that actually was I mean, it was a big step for me, because I was often in the shadow of the work, and for once I just wanted to explain the different link between them, and I guess, you know, I would redo it one day.
Yeah. Audience questions?
I was just wondering if you could explain your process of when you narrow down the images for your, you know, pastes. You know, how many, like, what are you looking for when you choose that image, and then just on average, like, how many do you go through to get to that, you know, that image you're looking for, those images? Thanks.
You mean for Ellis Island, for example?
For Ellis Island, or just in general, I guess the Ellis Island's a little bit more different because you're going through archived works versus current images.
Yeah, you know, I don't shoot that much. I paste much more than I take photos. So when I take a portrait of someone, it doesn't take me long, just a couple of minutes. And I know right away when there is an expression. You see it in the photo when there's just this expression that, like, okay, that's an honest one. There's pure energy in there. So generally, you know, when I see I have that, I feel almost bad taking photos of people. So then you know, when I know I have it, because in a lot of the countries I was going, people couldn't believe that I was coming back to paste them. And even if I was explaining them and showing them books of my previous project, still when we were coming back, they were like, oh, I never thought that you would come back. And where for me, that's the whole base of the work. And then on Ellis Island, you know, there haven't been that many photos taken at the time. So I went through the archive, and there's still, you know, a couple hundred photos, and selected the ones that I kind of reflect myself, you know, the story of my family or the stories of what I was seeing right now in the media. And I guess you compare both images with today's, and you still feel the same energy in them.
An interesting thing, just to follow up on that, was you know, you did use archival photos in Ellis Island. So what that was interesting. So how did you get access to all that? And also, just kind of going off that too, when you're working with these people trying to get this, you talk about you want that genuine, you want that real expression. How do you get that when you're working with these people?
So on Ellis Island, I just went to their archives, and they have a great, actually it's in the public domain, so anybody can use those photos. When I take the photos myself, I don't know, that's a good question, I guess. No, I went once, I remember I was in South Sudan,
Yeah.
and I really thought that I could never get those photos because the woman I was about to photograph, they were so strong looking with really strong face. And then when we started shooting, as soon as I showed them some faces and I would do them myself, then they started laughing and giving me much crazier faces that I could imagine. And then I realized it was a universal language. And, it's by exchanging with the people each time I get there, and it's the exchange is the best part for me.
Great.
Yeah, my question kind of follows up on that. With Ellis, so you're going through and you're filming scenes. You're not seeing the spark in someone's eyes. So how detailed were you going in knowing exactly what you want for capturing the atmosphere, for capturing the room? How did you know you had it and you had enough, or were you just filming whatever you saw?
First, we didn't have that much access. We couldn't stay there for that many days. So that gave us a constraint of time that was pretty big. So we only were shooting over a couple days. Then we would go through the rooms. And the place is big, but there's places that will not let us go in because it was too fragile. So sometimes we would try and get image there, and sometimes we would just focus on some area and it was hard to say. When we had De Niro there, it was much easier because we know, okay, that's where we need him to walk and stuff. When we were alone with this place and the energy, it was okay, how do we, you feel the energy all around you. It's okay, how do we capture that? And so that's why there's a lot of smoke and dust in that place. And I feel like that played a big role in it because with the wind and everything's just moving, you hear those clapping and you're really in the middle of the water. So the helicopter shot that you see, it was last minute, literally. We thought about it at 3 p.m. and then find someone that could fly us at 5 and just went, in the storm up there. That's how we made the whole project, actually.
Thank you.
And going off of that, so why was it actually closed and why is it never reopened? Have they ever thought about refurbishing it or just getting it?
They thought about it, but first the other side of the island have only been open since '91, so it's not that
right.
and it cost them a fortune to restore it. So I forgot what's the numbers, but they're humongous to restore the other side. So I guess they never find that money, and slowly this place started decaying. It's not easy when you restore such a place. Also, by restoring it, you're also destroying it. So, I'm kind of mixed feeling in how it could be restored in a way. I kind of like the tours that people can do right now because even if it's a little dangerous and you might, have a piece of ceiling falling on you, you kind of feel like you're walking in a place and you're the first one since the immigrants passed by. And so it feels really special. It really leaves you a mark on.
Very cool.
Yes?
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
You worked with the New York Times on a piece called Walking New York.
Yes.
And you also worked with a company called Verse, which is a virtual reality company. And I'm interested to know if that's a medium that you intend to explore in the future, or is that kind of a one-off experience?
Yeah, I've known Chris Milk from Verse for a while, and I actually thought about it when we were shooting on Ellis Island, but it was impossible because it was like having 2 crew at the same time, and there was too many constraints already. So when we did this piece for the New York Times cover, where it was a giant pasting that was so big on the floor of New York that no one saw it. People walked on it, and no one saw it. And it's only when we took a photo from above that suddenly this immigrant that was on the floor became in the light, and everyone else was in the shadow. The fact that Verse documented it this way is extraordinary, and that everybody can have it for free on their phone and watch it, you can relive the full experience. I never had such a documentation of my work that let you take part of the whole process. So I guess, yes, I would love to do it again it's a lot of work. It's really definitely a special thing to do. Thank you.
What was your process to choose the music for this film?
Why did I choose those artists, you mean?
Yes, how did you do it?
I've worked with Woodkid before on another film, and when I told him I would love to work again with him, he went to Ellis Island and he saw this old piano that was there, that no one have touched a chord since they closed the island. We didn't have the right to access that piano, but he touched it when he was there, and then he said, look, I've composed the music, but we should get a pianist that's insanely geek in the way that he used only like old pianos. And he told me about Niels Fram, that's from Germany. And so we flew there and showed the film to Niels Fram, and the partition of Woodkid and Niels Fram replayed on his really old pianos. So all the noise you hear, even when the doors are moving, those are noise from the piano, not from the doors. And so it was really special because it really took me to another level, because I was like, well, we have a piano here. Why do you want to record it out there? And he's like, no, you don't understand. We're going to hear the room. We're going to hear every little noise from the piano. And it really add a lot to the film. And so I was thinking of a whole orchestra and all that stuff, and then we ended up keeping it really light.
Can you tell us about the journey from being a graffiti artist in Paris to, sort of the world-hopping artist you are now?
I'm still in that journey, to be honest. I haven't seen it pass because I've never had a direct goal. So from one project to the other, it kind of led me here today in this room. And we're still in the same process. I work with a team of friends that I know for years, and that we kind of like an idea, jump on a project, do it, try, fail, restart. It's that constant process with no direct goal. To be honest, a month ago, we didn't even know what we would do with this film. As we were editing it and finishing it, we were not thinking of how to release it. Then when we had it finished, we were, oh, what should we do with it? So it's always on the last. One of the great ways to describe how I work is last minute phone call. Hey, can you help me? I need this now. And then if it works, it works. If not, it doesn't. But that's how everything we do happens, to be honest. The films, the screenings, I'm sure like 3 days ago you had no idea we were coming here. No. So that's kind of how it happened. And it's fine. Sometimes, it works, sometimes it doesn't. But there's sometimes magic stuff that can happen because of that short time. And that's all I knew, at least.
Great. And you have a new book, JR, Can Art Change the World? So can you tell us about that book?
Yeah, it's the first time it's Phaidon who published it, that a book kind of combine all those projects in one book. And I've always dreamed of one book that can be found everywhere, that be kind of an overall of the project, because then you realize how one led to the other. We even started the book with a cartoon, like to show the previous project and how it all started. So I was really excited about this book.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.
So, Ellis, so how are you getting this out to the world?
Basically, everybody who's watching now and here in this room or on the live or later on YouTube, they can, go on ellis-themovie.com and just order the movie for free. We'll send them the movie, and they can organize their own screening. And there's tons of ways also on that site just to share, say where you're from and where you arrived, and so that we realize that we kind of all immigrants, that we all come from somewhere, and that's where we are with the project. We want it to give it in people's hands so they take it to somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So it's really a people's project.
That's so cool. And so if you guys are sharing this and talking about this in social media, #EllisStory. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.